there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about another Tarkovsky film, which is The Steamroller And The Violin, which is his short film we made, was 40 minutes. It was made for the Children's Foundation Department in Russia, but it was also his diploma film. This is the thing he got his diploma as a student, but also it was produced and shown for children because it's a children's film. Which is really funny when you really see that Tarkovsky made a children's film. Now, I've got it in DVD, a very old copy with subtitles, and one of the funny things is in the credits, Tarkovsky and Andrei Tarkovsky is credited as Andrei Tarkovsky, which is weird. It is a strange film in a sense. It's not like what Tarkovsky do next. Even Ivan's Childhood, which is probably closest to it in a lot of ways, is far less sentimental with children, far less sentimental with the world. This is a quiet film for children. There's nothing there that will upset anyone. It's just an observational piece. It's a very slight film. People going to see this film expecting, Tarkovsky to be the Tarkovsky of Solaris or Stalker are going to be disappointed. But then again, you can still see a lot of the talent there. I mean, there's some wonderful sequences where the lead kid is looking at reflections, and you're seeing all these weird cinematic movements of people of various shards of glass reflecting differently to create these weird images that are wonderful. So there's a lot of wonderful little things, and Tarkovsky is very good at figuring out the mentality of children and what they're about, and how they can be cruel to each other, and how they've got their own little tribes, and how when you step out of the tribe, they will be brutal to you. So there's things that would transfer over to things like Mirror. There's things there that are consistent, are going to be there in the films too. So it's not all, lightness. Even though it's a children's film, there is darkness there. It does take place in a working class neighbourhood, and basically the story is of this child who's plays the violin. He's a musician, and it all takes place in one day. He's got a mother who works, and he has to go out himself to his violin test, where he has to avoid the local bullies. And during avoiding the local bullies, they catch him, and then the guy who runs Steamroller, who's doing work outside that day, says leave him alone. So the kid goes on his way and does his violin lesson. At the violin lesson, he meets this little girl, and he gives her his apple. He was given his mum for himself. So it shows the kid is a nice kid. He's dreamy, and he's been told by the violin the instructor that he's a bit too dreamy, that he's not taking his work seriously. So it's just really showing you this kid has a kind of a side to him that's away in his head, really. So he's an artist temperament, which is probably Tarkovsky giving himself some identification with the kid. But he's still a normal kid. He's just a bit more arty than the usual kids who are going to grow up to have normal professions. Then the kid goes back. The kid's about 7 years old, and he has to survive on his own quite a lot just because his mum's working, and he's already learned the violin. He's very pretty good, but he's not perfect. He doesn't get the tempo exactly right, which shows you his temperament. But the crux of the film is when he gets back to where his home, instead of going back into the house, he starts talking to the steamroller guy who protected him earlier on, and they start bonding, and they're talking. The steamroller guy lets him run the steamroller a little bit, and takes him when he goes for lunch, takes the kid along. The kid leaves his violin on the steamroller. The other kids see it and move towards it, and then you see them not want to touch it. So even though they torture the kid and they take the violin away from him and throw it to each other, there is a reverence for what he's doing. There is a sense of what he's doing is good. There's just some jealousy involved in the sense that he's going to try and get out while they are not going to get out. They're going to have normal lives, and he's going to go further, and there is a kind of jealousy, so they make him pay for it just now. So it tells you a lot about the culture without actually having a speech about it. It just shows you visually, like, this is what it's really about, is there's jealousy. Then you go to the kid and the steamroller guy talking. Turns out one of these co-workers, this female co-worker, likes the steamroller guy, but he's kind of he's off to himself a little bit. He's a war veteran, and he still seems to be carrying that with him, really. But he tries to be nice to people when he is looking out for the kid, because he sees the kid's a sensitive kid. And they bond, and he doesn't put up the kid's nonsense. Like, he toughens him up, because this is a kid without a father figure, obviously. The guy would not attach himself to this guy if he wasn't missing a father figure. And it's what the kid needs, really. Someone to look up to as a male figure. Who's a kind of responsible male figure. Someone who can teach him the right stuff he needs to know for life. There's that sense of that is what's missing in his life. He's not getting at home, really. But it's the story of their relationship and how it evolves, and just and it takes place over a day, because the steamroller guy is going to move on to somewhere else the next day. So it's intense friendship for one day. There's not going to be another day. So, but there is a kind of bittersweet ending where reality starts to click back in for everybody, and so it becomes this little moment in time where the two characters bonded, and then they kind of move on, because he's meant to meet the steamroller guy after work to chat a bit more, and his mum comes back and says, "No, you've got to practice the violin," so he doesn't get to go and see the guy, and the guy goes to the cinema and thinks the kid just hasn't come along, so he meets up with his the girl who works with, and they go into cinema together. So it's almost like the guy having to move on to life, and it just life goes on. That's the kind of feeling that it has. It's not like E.T. where there's a kind of a big emotional melodramatic ending. This is much more like a kid's film where life goes on. The kids are going to have to learn to grow up a little bit. You know, it's a bit more Russian than E.T. is, which is very American. But it is essentially, it does have that kind of a kid bonding with something that's other and learning a lot about life with it. But this is the Russian version. You know, which says you've got to learn life. So it really is, it is 45 minutes long, and it's paced really well. You couldn't make this story longer. This story's perfect for that time. It's because the kid is only a kid. There's only so much he can see. There's only so much they can talk to each other. And a lot of it is done visually. A lot of it's visual presentation of the relationship as they talk and as they walk. Mainly it's walking. It's mainly being the kid being with someone who's a grown-up who's approachable, and they grown up enjoying the company of the kid, and he's kind of, in a sense, he's like socially, he's kind of to himself a lot. So he's just a decent guy who's getting on with his life. And it's just this sense of two people who are a bit lonely, who have a fun day together, and then it kind of goes apart again. But it is a wonderful little film. It is slight, though. You cannot help but watch and think this is slight. This is not, and even for a kids' film, you know, it's not like The Red Balloon, which is a much stronger kids' film. Was Kill Kid with Red Balloon? That's a much stronger film, which has a much better concept to it. This one is something you can see another director doing a decent job of. It's not like, oh, this is the most amazing version of this story ever done. This is a professional thing. Tarkovsky's proven he can be a professional director. He puts his personality into it and makes a really good job in telling this story. But it's not really his story. It's basically him being a director for hire in some ways. But he's personalised it and making it good and making it have some meaning. But it does feel very separate from what follow in his films, because it's far more focused on what the audience wants from the story rather than what's bubbling under the story, what's the reason for making the story, which is where he would go. I think his frustration with Ivan's childhood might be they maybe had to still do some of those concessions to tradition, where after that he move on and find his own way through filmmaking stories and what the subtext is. That he was still dealing with here and Ivan's Children, still dealing with some traditions that maybe you might not have been that comfortable with. But it is a really strong little film. But it is a little film. But there's some wonderful moments. Just the little kid on the steamroller and just experiencing something different, something outside of his area. And also just little deals of grace where the kid has some problems with his violin playing because he's too imaginative. When he leaves the apple for the girl, and then when he comes back out the violin from his test, the apple's been eaten and the girl's gone. A lot of things like that are just wonderful. And just the details of the ending where it's not a happy ending. Again, there's lots of little directorial touches that really work. So he's building himself up and figuring the little things, how to tell things visually. So there's lots of stuff he's doing here that we do throughout his career, but do it probably in a more deeper way because he tried to deal with more difficult subjects, but how do you present it visually? So this is him taking the early steps and doing that with a child's imagination, but not adding any kind of real complications to it that would make things more difficult to decipher and make you have to engage more. This is telling you something you've already kind of figured out as you're watching it, where it's probably going to go. This is a children's story, but he's figuring out his craft through it, and it still is a wonderful little film. It's just not peak Tarkovsky, obviously. So I don't know if there's much more I can say about this film without just meandering again and again, going over the same point. It's definitely worth seeing. If you get a chance to see it, it is good. But it is an early work from a director. And it's not like Citizen Kane or Dark Star, where it's a director just busting out straight away and showing, oh, he's amazing. Now this is a very good early work. But Ivan's Childhood was the first full-length film he made that was much more of the kind of artistic coming out of a director. This is much more of an early period film that he was learning a lot on. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you can try and find the film because it's definitely worth seeing. So that's me for now. Right. Bye.